France, 1969. After fleeing authorities in Louisiana to Europe, Frank Abagnale is apprehended in France. To this point, Frank has been suspected on counts of impersonating a pilot, a lawyer, a doctor, and eventually becoming an undercover agent with the FBI. In 2002, Steven Spielberg directed a dreamy retelling of Frank Abagnale's story. But how much is actually true? You guessed it. Catch Me If You Can was inspired by a true story. And we use inspired pretty loosely. Welcome to True Crime for Cinephiles. This is Inspired by a True Story, a podcast devoted to keeping artists honest. We will discuss the overall details of the actual crimes, then review the film on its own, how much of that is true, and how much was Hollywood magic. This is a hard frickin' one to do. I'm Aaron Peterson, an accredited film critic for the Hollywood Outsider podcast and website, and devoted true crime fan. Joining me today are fellow film critics and true crime devotees, John Davenport.
I have no idea how to open this anymore.
And Amanda Sink.
Hello, hello.
Let's talk about how much we can believe about a man who lies for a living.
I don't know. When you look like Matt Bomer in White Collar, I really believe anything. You can forge whatever you want. You can lie about whatever you want, and I'll still believe you. But this guy, maybe a little different.
I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio is not less attractive than Matt Bomer, Amanda.
He's less attractive. Well, first of all, yes, he is. Second of all, definitely in Catch Me If You Can is he.
He's adorable.
And third of all, in real life, Frank Abagnale is a little bit of a hairy toe knuckle guy.
Kind of like Henry Winkler, right?
Yeah.
You see him in real life? I'm not knocking him. He just, he doesn't look like Leo DiCaprio.
I'm pretty sure we haven't seen Henry Winkler and Frank Abagnale in the same place at the same time.
I just love how much trouble you're having with the name when you gave me a lot of grief before this podcast about having trouble with that name.
Right. It's because my stutter is kicking in now that we're recording. And I'm fighting it the entire way. Somebody asked me last night about my new phone, and it took me longer to tell them about my new phone than it did to actually take a picture.
That doesn't surprise anyone, actually. So Catch Me If You Can. This is one I had seen, obviously, when it came out. This was a big hit, big hit for Leo and Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks, obviously. It's a very good film. It's got a little bit of James Bond mystique in it, a little bit of To Catch a Thief. I mean, it's got some whimsy. It's got some redemption. It's a beautiful film until you look into it and you're like, how much of this is really true? Because I think over the years, we're led to believe that so much of this movie is true, but there has been a lot to come out that kind of debunks a lot of what happens here.
That's the unfortunate thing for me, because this has been one of my favorite Poppy Field movies for a long time. Whenever I wanted something. Yeah. When I was rewatching it the other day, I was reminded of just how good Spielberg is at Poppy Field stuff. It feels like Spielberg-esque. It feels like it's in the same realm of everything else he's done. One of my favorite moments is when Hanreddy shows up to the engagement party and the dollar bills or the $100 bill or whatever it was comes sliding out from underneath the door and then kind of flies around him in a fantastical way and then heads down in a different way. I love the way that feels in the moment, which goes back to like, this isn't a real story almost.
I mean, some of it is true. Like we can't dismiss the fact that there's still a lot of truth. I mean, he still forged a lot of checks. He still pretended to be a pilot. He still was sitting in that jump seat. Like a lot of crazy things that were in this movie still did happen, but to the same extent and to the same degree, not necessarily. We'll get through some of the details of what comes out later on, but we later learn basically that, it's not all as extravagant as it seemed.
I know. When I first saw this movie, I'm like, I want to be this guy. I want to go make some forge
He
some
makes
checks.
It seem fun. I'm like, let me go to a little bid and get my own little typewriter and make my own checks.
He ended up with Jennifer Garner and Amy Adams. I'm in. I am in.
Oh my God. The Amy Adams is a little weird though. Like I understand he is supposed to be a child also, but Leonardo DiCaprio has to be at least 32 years old when this movie comes out. It feels like.
No, he wasn't.
At least 28. I don't know. He feels old.
They're the same age.
Not 17.
They're the same age.
He doesn't look like it. She's got braces on. She feels like a 14-year-old.
Is this Tom Cruise all over again, where nothing Tom Cruise can do right? Like now Leo can't do anything right, huh? Show me on the Titanic where Leo hurt you.
It's the fact that she has braces, which I equate to being like 12 to 14 years old. And then she gets her braces off. And then, I mean, I understand she had a job and everything, so I guess maybe she was older. But they just felt like there was a big age difference going on.
Okay,
and he was like, I feel pity for you.
They're both legal when this movie was filmed.
Right.
All good. Mm-hmm. They are roughly the same age in real life.
Right.
And this is a movie, Amanda. I don't know if you heard.
Aren't.
I don't know if you heard. This is a movie. And he was actually roughly supposed to be very young compared to what she thought he was. In real life, if you go by the movie standards, she's actually older than him in the movie.
It's just the way it's depicted makes me feel a little uncomfy because he looks
like an
much
Amanda
older.
Problem.
It is.
This is an Amanda problem because she's still going, oh man, if she was 25, he would never do this.
Exactly.
Why is she wearing braces at that age? I don't understand. All right, let's get into the crime. First, we got to tell you what this movie is about. 2002's Catch Me If You Can was based on the book by Stan Redding, which had input from Frank Abagnale Jr. The screenplay was written by Jeff Nathanson, and the film was directed by Steven Spielberg. They did not refer to Frank Abagnale during writing it or filming it, but he was invited to the set. He actually has a cameo in the movie. Follows the exploit of Frank Abagnale Jr., a young man who begins forging checks before spiraling into impersonating Pan Am pilots, the doctors, the various other scams and cons. Leonardo DiCaprio plays Frank with Christopher Walken, the wonderful Christopher Walken, portraying his father, and Tom Hanks hot on his tail as FBI agent Carl Hanratty, who's based on Joe Shea, a real-life FBI agent. New episodes are released every 2 weeks of this podcast and can be found wherever you listen to podcasts or at thehollywoodoutsider.com or at inspiredbyatruestory.com. They take you to the same place. You can also hear episodes early by supporting the show at patreon.com/thehollywoodoutsider. Film and true crime fans alike are always debating how true their true crime is. So let's investigate Frank Abagnale Jr. and Steven Spielberg's Catch Me If You Can. Frank Abagnale Jr. claims to have performed cons worth several millions of dollars before he even turned 19. Frank Abagnale Jr. was born on April 27, 1948 in New York. His parents did divorce when he was 16, which had a significant impact on his life. He's actually one of 4 children. In 1963, Abagnale's criminal beginnings began. At the age of 16, he started his criminal career by running away from home, forging checks, and using various aliases to commit fraud. In 1964, roughly, he impersonated a Pan Am pilot. That's his most famous impersonation. It involved posing as a Pan Am pilot. He created fake identification and dressed in a pilot's uniform, allowing him to fly, allegedly, over 1 million miles, often without paying for tickets, basically as a deadhead. More on that at the end of the podcast, but the truth that can be verified is he did dress as a Pan Am pilot for at least 3 months, but that's about it. In 1965, Abagnale claimed to impersonate a medical doctor, despite having no formal medical training. He managed to work at a Georgia hospital for nearly a year before being discovered, according to him. However, hospital administrators at the Cobb General Hospital in Marietta, Georgia, where he claimed to work, said there was no midnight to 8 a.m. shift, as he claimed, nor did the position of regular overnight pediatrician exist at this time. Furthermore, New York State archives show that Abagnale was in the Great Meadow Prison when this was supposed to occur. He also claimed to fake a license and work as an attorney and allegedly passed the Louisiana bar exam, as they referred to in the movie. There is no record of him passing the bar, nor working in the Attorney General's office. As a result of his fraudulent activities, Abagnale becomes a wanted criminal with the FBI pursuing him. Retired FBI agents have claimed there was never a task force set up to catch him. In 1969, Abagnale was captured in France after he did escape from the States. He was caught in Louisiana originally, and then he escaped and fled to Europe, and he was caught in France and subsequently extradited to the United States to face charges after a short extradition to Switzerland. In 1970, Abagnale agrees to cooperate with the U.S. law enforcement agencies, using his expertise to help them investigate and prevent fraud, according to him. According to the FBI, they have no comment or record of this occurring.
Do we really think that they would admit to that, though? I feel like our government agencies are kind of like, nah, that didn't happen.
There's
an explosion or a bombing, and we know there's video evidence that we did it, and they'd be like, we don't have any record of that. Our documentation does not reflect.
Here's what I would say to that. This is just an opinion because there is no way to back. We only have his word, right? The FBI has never said that's not true. I firmly believe, this is my personal opinion, if it was not true at all, they would have condemned it publicly. They would have said, this is not true. He never worked for the FBI. He's never been on the payroll. But I will say that retired FBI agent Al Brown did confirm that he's never been aware of him working on the payroll, only that he has done lectures on fraud in his later years for the Academy, pro bono, but never been on the FBI payroll to his knowledge. It's the only official record we have of that, which is not much. So no confirmation of any kind. But if he did work undercover, I would think, to your point, Amanda, we would not know that. They would not tell us.
They don't owe us nothing. Why would they?
No, but if he was lying, I think they would. Like if he's flat out lying, I think they would say, I think there's probably some truth to it. Or I'm just as gullible as the rest of you. In 1971, Abagnale is sentenced to 12 years in prison for forging checks and escaping from the Cobb County jailhouse. He was never housed in Atlanta federal pen, as he claimed, but he only serves a few years. Abagnale was released in the condition, according to him, that he would help federal law enforcement agencies combat fraud. In 1974, after his release from prison, Abagnale begins the process of rehabilitation and reform. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because his post-criminal life in the 80s and 90s following his release. Now, in the late 70s, he did guest on To Tell the Truth, and he was on Johnny Carson and many late-night shows, and basically became famous in this way. And following his release and after this fame, allegedly, according to him, he transformed his life. This is true. This is factual. He became a consultant and lecturer on fraud prevention and security, and to this day, he works with banks, corporations, and government agencies to improve their security measures. He has authored books, including loosely Catch Me If You Can, but he also became a very sought-after speaker. He commands $20,000 to $30,000 per appearance, sharing his experiences and knowledge of fraud and security. So he continues this legitimate career as a security consultant to this day, advising organizations on how to protect themselves from fraud and identity theft.
Fake it till you make it, baby. That's all I gotta say. Fake it till you make it.
Man, I mean, this is impressive. True or not, all this is impressive. It's fun. It's wild. I don't know. I feel like a lot of this stems from conning. So I don't know. Could this be the greatest con ever?
Yeah, it could be the greatest con ever. But to some extent, like to be able to do these jobs as far as that we can prove that he's doing, right? He had to have been vetted somehow. You know, that for him to be able to turn this into a legitimate life, he had to be vetted somehow. He couldn't just showed up and been like, hey, I want to do the good stuff now. I have been the world's greatest con man, but now I want to start doing good stuff. So can you guys pay me for that? Like that, I would like to think that if you're going to walk up to places and say that, they would laugh you right out the building. So hopefully he was properly vetted and add some truth to the fantasy that we see as his life.
Here's the reality too with it. If he did not, when he's doing all of these speaking events and he's having all of these consultations with companies, they wouldn't continue to pay him, even if they failed to properly vet him. They wouldn't continue to pay him, and he wouldn't continue to get jobs if the things he were doing with them or saying weren't accurate or at least have some merit. You know what I mean? Like they're bought in because of what he's sharing with them. And whether that's from personal experience or him just learning about it along the way and again faking it till he made it. I mean, either way, these companies have seen some return on that investment.
I mean, there's some, yeah, sure. Sure. He has verified. His son is actually Scott, I believe is his name, Scott Abagnale, is confirmed to be an actual FBI agent. And his father did.
That's dope.
Yeah.
I love that.
He did become an actual FBI agent.
Talk about apple falling far from the tree, though.
Not necessarily. I mean, he definitely changed his life and reformed. And his son obviously wants to lock his dad up, so he became an FBI agent, right?
My dad is such a square that he belongs in prison, so I'm going to put him there.
That's not true. That's not true. But he is an FBI agent, and his dad did teach a class or give a lecture. I'm unsure exactly what the full detail was, but at the academy, and his son did attend. So he actually did teach his son to some degree at the academy. Pro bono, I believe, but,
I mean, all of this kind of mounts up to there has to be a good sized kernel of truth in what he's saying. It's hard. Some of it's hard to believe. But again, I remember watching a movie recently going, man, the 80s really were wild. But never mind the 80s, the 60s and 70s, you can get away with a lot.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think there's a lot to be said about misinformation and how. I saw one interview with someone who's a retired FBI agent who's not affiliated with the case, who's just speaking about the case. And he said he believes that this is one of the great moments when society morphed into the misinformation phase, especially when the movie came out and it became very popular. Because the more you repeat a lie, as we found in recent years with politics, right? The more you repeat a lie, the more people believe the lie. So the more you continue to say it over and over and over, as he's done since the late 70s, the more people believe that this has to be true, because it would be ridiculous for it not to be.
That's a scary point, too.
Yeah.
That just hit in such a weird way that I want to go live in the middle of nowhere again.
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about it. I don't know how much is true and how much is not. I don't even know if Frank Abagnale knows how much is true and how much is not at this point, because I'm sure over the years he's probably retold stories in various fashion to various degrees.
Isn't there a thing somewhere out there in the ether that says basically people can teach themselves to believe their own lies?
Oh, sure.
Essentially, like when you've retold it, it changes your actual memory, where you begin to see what you've told as the lie as your reality. And in your mind, in your memories, it actually reflects that way when you do it for long enough. So I can definitely see some merit in if he's telling that story and he becomes famous and he is having to lock down what his story is. At some point, he starts to imagine that. He starts to figure out, what this story should actually look like, and being able to continue to retell it in the same way.
In some respects, I sit there and I think about this movie as being much like Big Fish, right?
Oh, the Tim Burton movie. Sure.
Tim Burton movie. You're living the life of somebody who makes everything fantastical. As time progresses, you either realize that the stories he made are way too fantastically true, or just enough truth to them to be fantastical. It's an interesting dichotomy of stories where this is much more centered in reality than Big Fish is. These movies are very much parallel too.
Oh, for sure. So let's talk about the movie, and then we're going to come back to what the movie got right, what it got wrong, because there's a lot of truths and non-truths in here that I think are worth coming back to. But first, I want to talk about the movie. So DiCaprio, my opinion, charming as hell. I think DiCaprio is wonderful in this movie. This is definitely one that continued his stardom explosion, and he's been a major movie star ever since. But he's wonderful. Do we agree on that, or do we wish Matt Bomer was in the part? Amanda?
I mean, personally, would I have liked Matt Bomer to be in this part? Yes, because I've seen him do forgery, and he does it real well.
How do you do
well with a fedora?
Well. How do you do forgery well?
By not getting caught. But he literally did the exact same thing. I swear White Collar is based off of this story. Think about it. Think about it, guys.
Fictional character. Matt Bomer is not a real forger. Fictional character.
Know, but
I'm not convinced you know anymore. I'm not convinced. You think Matt Bomer.
Matt Gomer. That's his name from here on out. Matt Gomer.
That's his alias, guys. Matt Gomer.
Clever.
Ha! I'm Matt Gomer.
Stop. But the movie itself, I love this movie. I watched it recently for the first time, and it was a lot of fun.
Oh, you had never seen it before?
No.
Oh, that's great. That's cool.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I love Tom Hanks. And so I was excited to watch it anyway. But
knock.
That was so funny. But yeah, I thought it was really good. I liked the dynamic between these two leads, these two characters, where, you know, it's kind of like that tension relationship, you know, where you have one character who's like really hot, and then you have another one who's kind of cold, but like they really care about each other in some way. And I was like, oh, this is adorable. Like they're building a friendship on the basis of this hunt and escape, this cat and mouse game. And so I thought that was really cute, and I enjoyed that and their chemistry. But it really makes you question, you know, security in the 90s and 80s and so on.
Basically, we've never been secure. This is the way I'm looking at it.
Right.
Because apparently you can get away with a lot of stuff back then.
Apparently you can just go to a bank auction and get the stuff you need to forge a whole bunch of stuff.
You know, I was thinking about that too, though, and I was like, I can see that happening because this is just old, quote unquote, equipment that they're, you know, if you were to open up your own bank or your own business, yeah, you would probably need some of these things. Just like meth heads could probably get the right chemistry equipment, you know, through legal means if they needed to.
Meth heads just create explosions, okay? It's the scientists that make the stuff.
It's the Walter Whites of the world.
Right. It's the meth heads that just create explosions.
I love the intensity. This is probably one of the first movies where I really started to appreciate Leonardo DiCaprio as an actor as opposed to movie star. Because I feel like he was, and The Beach is probably another one, but
yeah,
I just thanks. I just really enjoy how the ups and downs his character takes throughout the movie and how he addresses them. Yes, he's very slick and charming, but he also has like mental breaks at several points. And like there's a moment on the plane when Hanks's character, Carl Hanratty, tells him that his father died while he was on the run. And the way DiCaprio plays it, I think, is just beautiful. And it's also beautifully shot by Spielberg, but it's just a very warm moment that comes through Shining, I think.
I think one of the best moments in that regard is the moment where Hanratty and him meet for the first time, and he's trying to play that Secret Service role. And the whole time he's doing the con right there in front of Hanratty, and but as soon as he turns his back on him, he breaks for a second and looks like he's about to crap his pants.
Yeah, he's terrified.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a child too. I thought that was phenomenal because I'm like, a kid would probably feel that way or act that way after they were quote unquote in the clear.
Sure, absolutely. And I mean, the score by John Williams is wonderful. Steven Spielberg's direction is flawless in this movie. Yes. Really, really creates this old feel, this old aesthetic. Throwback to movies of days gone by, and it's just wonderfully done, wonderfully shot, wonderfully acted. Weird. I was basically playing like, ooh, who's that? Throughout the movie, because I'm like, Pompeo, Amy Adams, Jennifer Garner. I mean, they just keep popping up. Like movie stars just were pooped out of this movie.
Amy Acker, not really a movie star, but you know.
I'm glad that you're part of her fan. You're probably the president of her fan club. But those three became major stars. That's why I reference them. Were you surprised to see, Amanda, you're a huge Grey's Anatomy fan. Were you surprised to see Ellen?
I was.
Was it Ellen Pompeo or Eileen Pompeo?
It's Ellen.
Thank you. Boy, I feel bad. I just said her name wrong. And
you did. I thought maybe it was just rubbing off from the monster episode. So.
No. So it's Ellen Pompeo. I apologize, Ellen. You've done wonders with ABC television and making Grey's Anatomy a show that ran for 47 years.
So much so that you don't even need to work anymore. Congratulations.
Exactly.
Yeah, she's not even on the show, but it's still her show, basically. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I was surprised to see her. I was also surprised to see, it's interesting to see how her characters in general were when she was younger. She was very like fun and lively and like joyous and laughter filled and like, you know, I guess just kind of fun. And as she's gotten older, at least in Grey's Anatomy, which is the only thing she's done in the past 10 years, she's gotten a little less joyous. She's gotten a little more serious. And it's quite the dynamic.
That poor woman is like, I just need to get off the show. Why did I get on a show with my name on it? God damn it.
Yep. It's literally the Titanic meme, 84 years later. And she's just this old lady just struggling through. Yeah.
Anything more about the movie before we get into what the movie got right and got wrong? Okay. Well, here we go. So here's what the movie got right. And, you know, usually we ask, did it respect the victims? That's a tricky one with this one, but really we're concerned with, did the movie get anything right? And here's what it got right. So Frank did appear on To Tell the Truth in 1977, and then later on a bunch of talk shows, including Johnny Carson. So you can rest assured that happened. We've got one.
There's evidence.
Fact.
Good job, America.
Exactly. He is, in fact, a con man, regardless of what you think. He is definitely con people, most of all, us. He did marry Kellyanne Welbs. One of those is probably right. And is still married to her today. So that's very sweet. He's still married to her many, many decades later. Al Brown, which I mentioned before, one of the 3 police officers who arrested Frank Abagnale, confirmed that Frank has done lectures and training at the FBI Academy for pro bono. I think it's important to note that he did those free of charge. When he can collect, they offered to pay his fees and his travel and his hotel, and he refused. He wanted to do them free.
You want to know something else?
Sure.
Oh, wait. It's not anything that they got. It's what they got wrong, actually.
Okay. Well, then hold that thought. All right. We're doing the nice things now. Then we'll do that.
Well, it was a short list. I thought we'd moved on already.
No, I have two more. But I do think it's worth, we should give him credit, right, for doing that pro bono, for contributing his time when he didn't have to, and he could have been paid for that.
Yeah. Go you.
I mean, when you want everyone to buy into your bullshit, you do something nice, and then
there's also that too, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like the stepping stones to get up.
Damn it!
I mean,
he's just trying to get on the ladder.
Yeah, if you pay attention to narcissists, they do this kind of stuff all the time.
I mean, I guess if you're really thinking about it, if he was not telling the truth about being an undercover agent for the FBI, this gives credence and value to him saying that he's worked with the FBI. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So I'm sorry, Aaron. I didn't mean to pull the Aaron card on this.
Nope.
Usually you're jumping on this right away about
sorry.
This is
trying to give the guy credit, and now I have to take all my credit away. Sorry.
You know what? I'm just here to keep you honest.
Appreciate it. Frank's dad, this is true, did die in a freak tripping accident. Very sad.
That part of the movie was really sad.
It was. I just said that was that's my favorite scene in the movie. I just thought the way it's played is just so.
Well, I think the whole relationship with his father is really sad to a degree. You know, I mean, I know I lost my opportunity to talk about this, but it was in my brain to talk about it when we're back talking about the movie. But now it's here again. So the whole relationship with his father is really sad because, you know, they paint his father as basically the template as to what Frank ultimately ends up becoming. Right. Mm-hmm. His dad teaches him that he can get away with all sorts of things if he just plays his cards right and just distracts people the right way. And when his father is in on the fact that, at least in the movie, when his father's officially in on the idea that everything is a lie, he's defrauding people left, right, and center, making all sorts of money, traveling the country. You know, people are so fascinated by him. People think he's such a big deal just by the way he's presenting himself. And his father's like loving every single second of it. And he's like, "Dad, just tell me to stop." And his father refuses. That makes it like the whole idea of that's how they're painting his father is sad. But even if that's true, equally or even more so sad.
It's not true, but we'll get there.
All right.
But it is sad. But Christopher Walken delivers that wonderfully.
Right.
Wonderfully. His dad actually was a tax fraud issue is what it was. That was his situation that he was in trouble for. The other truth, the prostitute who got a fake check, that was true. And she actually went to authorities with it, but he had already fled by that time.
Dang.
Yeah.
What's interesting about that is how they kind of play that off, because they talk about her name is Cheryl. They talk about her being on the covers of Vogue and Harper's Bazaar and a few other magazines like 17. There was a big name model around that time. And so they sort of allude to her being that big name model at the same time. And really, it's really shitty that they're calling her essentially a prostitute.
I don't think they're alluding to that. I think that's what you're reading. And to my recollection, they only mentioned Vogue. They didn't mention other magazines.
I think they mentioned cover 17, but that's never.
I don't know. When you get paid money to sleep with somebody, that's sex worker to me.
Yeah. I don't care what magazine you've been on.
Yeah. At some point now.
I ain't judging. You do you.
I'm not judging.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, girl. You get your $1,000, especially at that time when he, like, I can't remember what it was that he had bought, but it was like 55 cents. And I was like, a deck of cards. I was like, nowadays, that'd probably be a good $5. So if you inflate the inflation, if you inflate the inflation, if you adjust for inflation, thank you. Realistically, she was making some good money for just one night. Like, Leonardo wasn't that bad looking. Well, like, I would probably do it too.
I mean, in theory,
that
she made
bad
nothing.
Looking.
She actually paid him. Yeah, she actually paid him for that night. Let's be honest.
I mean, that is true.
You know, if anything worked out to anyone's benefit, it worked out to his. And he was like, yeah, I'm king shit now.
Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, I actually made money off of this. I got laid and I made money. Good for him, honestly.
Who's the sex worker now?
Wow. All right. Well, what the movie got wrong or left out, and was it worth it? So Frank himself has stated that the film is 80% true. We're taking the word of a con artist, so I don't know. I mean, you go with what you want on that one. But Frank was actually one of 4 children, not one like the movie implied. And while his parents did split up, he lived mostly with his father. His first big crime was charging over $3,000 on his dad's credit card, which he then ran away from home. What's important to note about that is Frank never actually talked to his dad again after he ran away.
Wow.
That's messed up.
That is messed up.
Because they make it seem like his story is so much different with his father. Also, if I was his siblings, I'd be like, what the actual F? Why am I not in the movie?
Who wants to hear about the other 3 kids? They're not interesting, right?
Nobody cares about them.
Yeah.
Not even his Wikipedia page gives a damn about them.
No. But it's true. He had 3 siblings. As for his mother, she never actually remarried. So there is no little sister in the house that he came and saw, and he's like, who are you? Who's your mom? That actually never happened.
That's a little wild, too.
It was,
But I can see dramatized.
I mean, yeah, it's dramatized, but that scene, and it had to be there for a reason, because that was really pushing Frank over the edge to make him feel like, as far as the movie's concerned, that he had nothing left, that he had nobody. So that makes sense. But it's also, that scene itself feels like a put on. It feels
forced,
like yeah.
You could say it forced. It feels forced. Yeah.
It's forced. It feels like I'm being conned by the movie.
I think we're all being conned. Yeah.
We were. And it fits the theme. Yeah.
Sure. While being pursued by the FBI on the plane, he escaped through the service doors where the food was brought on, not the bathroom, according to him. According to the airline, it was impossible to escape either way. I don't know which is true. Just telling you what we learned.
I mean, if he escaped, then apparently there is a way. That's all I know.
Yeah.
If it happened. If it happened. If it happened.
Oh, so there's no proof that he
There's no
escaped.
verification that this happened. This is his word versus the world, I guess. I don't know.
God, man, the 70s were a crazy time.
Carl Hanratty is not a real agent, but more a composite of many agents, the main one being Joe Shea, and he didn't want his name used. So the most specific one would be Joe Shea. Frank claimed that they were friends for 30 years until his death. There's no verification of that as well, that they were friends for 30 years. That's just what Frank says. I have to assume it's true, but no confirmation of that truth. And in fact, several FBI agents have alluded to they do not believe that this is true. I don't know. We're not. Prize-winning journalists. Science journalist Alan Logan wrote an extensive piece on Frank. Actually, he created a book on Frank called The Greatest Hoax on Earth, Catching Truth While We Can, essentially claiming most of this story is nonsense. You know that many people found his book on Robert Vernon Spears, a medical con man who was a suspect on an airline disaster in 1959, very similar to Frank's stories. Logan used public records for his book, The Greatest Hoax on Earth, to suss out the real story. He became just obsessed about this entire story and proving how inaccurate it was. He determined that Frank dressed as a TSA pilot, which he only did for a few weeks, befriended a flight attendant named Paula Perks. He then followed her all over the eastern seaboard, identified her work schedule through deceptive means, and essentially stalked the woman. He met her parents, then came back a few days later when Paula was gone and said, "Hey, I'm Paula's friend. I'm on furlough as a pilot." They invited him in out of kindness. Paula...
Creep.
Yeah, and there's more. Paula was terrified. They treated him like family, even feeding him. He then stole checks and about $1,200 from the family and more from local businesses in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and was caught and arrested. Now speak to the creep factor.
I don't think we need to speak to that. Creep is creep. That's creepy. You don't show up, like, meet my family before I let you meet my family. Come in my house. Mm-hmm. Like, who are you? That's crazy people stuff. That's crazy people stuff.
Yeah, that's not normal. That's not normal. There's a quote from Alan Logan. So Abagnale's narrative that between the ages of 16 and 20, he was on the run, chased all over the United States and even internationally by the FBI. This is completely fictitious. Public records obtained by me show that he was confined for the most part in prison during those years.
That's nuts.
Awkward.
Here's more. Pan Am spokesperson Bruce Hoxhausen denied that Abagnale ever stole any money. I've checked with security people and everyone here, and it never happened. This is the first we've heard of this, and we would have heard, or at least remembered, if it had happened. You don't forget $2.5 million in bad checks. I'd say this guy is as phony as a $3 bill. This is a quote from many, many years ago, obviously.
I mean, so part of me is like, yeah, I get that. But then the other part of me is like, man, that time, though, nobody was documenting anything.
Yeah,
like, nobody
accountants
was
were trash then, so.
Yeah.
They didn't have QuickBooks.
Right. So I don't know, I feel like I still have some leniency in it. But then again, to your comment earlier, Aaron, this would be the greatest con of all time if he conned us all into thinking that he was a con man to get this career, but he conned us and conned all of these like banks and companies into thinking that he was something spectacular and notable. I don't know.
It's like Conception.
Jeez.
It is, exactly.
Oh, also starring Leonardo DiCaprio.
I am done for the rest of this recording. I cannot do any better than that.
Nope. Exit stage left.
Right. Correct.
Well, it didn't stop Abagnale from going on the Tonight Show and gaining fame, stating that these people denied his cons to avoid the embarrassment. I can see some truth to that.
A lot of that makes sense. Again, he wouldn't, I would hope that all this money that he is now making by doing all the stuff that he's doing, because, he's pretty well off now. I would hope that this money is still somehow being made honestly at this point versus
it is
not
now.
Honestly.
Yes, now it's verified. He's been an honest citizen for many years.
Yeah. So, I would hope that for him to be able to earn all this honest dollars, that somebody was able to track down the truths and the falsehoods and verify everything and not just hand this guy a job for the sake of, here's a story that he told that was pretty good.
And yet they haven't. They have not. They have not been able to.
Yeah, the FBI, they just refused to comment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so to me, that leaves me with a little bit. Because even, let's be honest, the FBI has been like, nah, there's not aliens. Knowing that there were aliens, they're comfortable saying no when the answer is no, even if the answer is yes.
Yeah, but this is very public, so they don't want to be on record for whatever reason.
Exactly.
But to Amanda's point, no one from the FBI has ever made a public statement about what Abagnale has or hasn't done for them. Many members of the FBI claim to have never worked with him. He has given some guest lectures at the Academy. Of course, we've talked about that, but he makes some outlandish claims to the media, such as claiming to teach ethics at the FBI. How true is that? We just don't know, because they won't confirm or deny anything.
What if the entire time he was an FBI agent and it was just a way to develop this whole new program? And he really was like
they weren't giving them the money. They couldn't get the budget approved.
Right.
So he went through, made this scandal so that way they could take it seriously because nobody was taking it seriously. And now they have a program.
That's
I love
right.
it, John.
Amanda, thank you for taking the baton from me because you saw that I was like running out of steam. Like you saw the idea percolating there.
I met you.
And you were like, oh, he's got something. Oh, here comes the ADHD. Yeah. Here comes the ADHD.
Squirrel.
The ADHD has settled in. Time for me to pick it up and go.
Yeah, I got you, John. I got you.
I got it.
Well, here's another one. Abagnale talked to Google once. Millions of views. You can find it on YouTube. And he claims in this video that a 100th anniversary coffee table book identifies him as the only person ever sprung out of the federal penitentiary to work for the agency. The only problem, his name is actually nowhere to be found in that book.
Boy, you just a liar. This man literally is like, I don't know if it's ego or if it's just, he's just trying to make himself seem cool
Gravitas.
or what.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. But like,
yeah, with everything, it just seems like he would be that guy to be like, the sky is blue. And he'd be like, no, it's not. It is actually the three different colors of gray.
Last one. Frank Abagnale claimed at one point that he was the youngest person ever on the FBI's most wanted list. This was even used in the film's marketing. He was never on the most wanted list.
This one shooketh me a little bit.
Aww.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I just feel like that's kind of like the cool part, right? Like that makes you super interesting.
I think it makes you a monster if you're wanted on the top 10. That's big.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm talking about I'm not talking about like murder, like terrible things like that. Like these are.
I heard that when I'm like, why would they put you in the top 10 for impersonating a pilot? Nobody gives a shit.
Right.
It's about all the money he supposedly stole.
We're gonna get the check forger. Put him in the top 10. I don't.
Mm-hmm. He is one of the most dangerous people out there in the country.
Well, he could finagle his way through anything.
Ooh, not finagle.
Yes. And then he'll skedaddle his way out.
That's how he'll skedaddle his way out.
Not finagling and skedaddling at the same time.
He's a dangerous man, Aaron. I don't know what to tell you.
God.
I gotta say that the amount of like guy privilege this guy throws around is amazing. Like I can only equate this to, what if I were to walk in a room and be like, I am the most desirable guy here to all the women? It would not be true. It would be nowhere near being true.
We need believable claims, though, John. You have to make it believable. His were somewhat believable somehow.
That's the trick to confidence. You have to keep saying it and say it authoritatively like he does in the movie.
Okay, hold on. Let me try this real quick.
No, it's not going to work.
It's not going to work?
No, because
let him try.
We are already preordained to say no.
Okay. All right.
We've been paid off by women.
If you want to try, go ahead. Let's con us.
You know, I don't know if I can do it anymore. Hold on.
John, you can con us. You got this.
I'll tell you what. I am the most desirable guy in this room right now.
You know what? I'll give it to him. If only people saw the confidence exuding from his physical presence right now.
You know what? I'll give it to you because where you are, you're by yourself and you're the only person in that room. So yes. I believe it.
Am so hurt right now. I can't believe you called me out like that.
Oh, that's funny.
Or is he the only person in that room?
Yeah.
We don't know.
I mean, okay, I'm not going to go any further.
You can't see below his waist.
Oh,
stop.
Okay. Now you're making it weird.
Sorry. You're right.
That leads me to say all of that. We've talked about what seems true, what feels true, what's been told is true, but what's not true, what might not be true, what is definitely not true, what could be true, what might possibly be wrong. Where do you land?
What?
This is the trickiest movie we've watched so far because I don't know what I believe anymore. In fact, I'm starting to doubt myself and what I believe is my own experiences in life.
Wait, do we even do a podcast?
No, we haven't been doing this. This is all fake.
Are you guys even real?
No, I'm Matt Bomer.
Apparently.
Hello, Matt Bomer.
Sorry,
how are you doing today?
I'm Matt Gomer. Sorry. Hello, I'm Matt Gomer. How you doing? Is like a little bit Southern Australian in that one.
Yeah, it's all sounding real bad.
No, where do you land on this one?
As a movie, I love the movie still. Even knowing that most of this stuff is so hard to believe, I will still love this movie. Only because Steven Spielberg does make it an enjoyable watch. Leo does vacillate and show you how well of an actor he really is. Tom Hanks, always a party. You know, there's so many levels to just how the greatness of this movie, and it feels like a time capsule movie. So you can watch this movie now, you can watch this movie in 20 years, it'll still feel the same way. So as a movie, I appreciate it. The story breaks my heart a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the types of crimes. I don't want to put it like this, but there's definitely levels, right? Like you wouldn't put, even though he swindled and stole allegedly millions of dollars from people and companies, and he's allegedly done terrible crimes, but in the same respect, it's not as bad as some of the other crimes that we've talked about through the show, and we'll talk about. Exactly. So,
well, stalking, that's not good.
Yeah, that he's definitely teetering into the you territory, you know. But in terms of this, I don't feel like we're doing any harm by not telling the truth of the story or potential truth to the story. This isn't going to harm any victims necessarily. You know, so this is where you can absolutely take an idea of, if this were all true, what would it look like? And that makes it fun as hell.
Mm-hmm. Makes it a great movie.
Yeah. So I would leave it the same.
Yeah. I wouldn't change anything. I mean, honestly, I don't care how true or not true it is. This guy hasn't changed my life in any way, shape, or form, but the movie is thoroughly enjoyable. I love the score. I love the direction. I love Leo and Tom Hanks, and seeing all these actresses that I've have grown into wonderful movie stars, which is still think is kind of crazy. Just sitting there going, and they're in it, and they're in it, and they're in it. You know, it's only been 20 years, but a lot of them have done so much wonderful work since then. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a great movie. The only thing I don't like, and I know this is going to be, I don't like the opening credits. I mean, I get it, but
it adds to the feel of the 60s. It also adds to that James Bond aspect of it.
Totally get it. Just, I kept wanting to skip them. I'm jarred, I guess, on opening credits.
That's fair. It was real long.
Yeah, it was kind of long.
It was unnecessary.
Yeah, it wasn't like they weren't clever and interesting. They were just like, is this still going? I mean, how many people are in this damn movie?
It is 2/3 of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, when does the story begin?
Yeah. Huh. I think I've been watching these credits the entire 16 years this kid's been alive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The only sad part is the whole truth of the dad's storyline. Like the fact that he really never talked to him again, but in the movie paints him as kind of a mentor of sorts. That part's sad.
That is sad.
Yeah.
I would agree.
What would you have done differently? The only thing I really would have done differently is I wouldn't have said based on a true story, because I don't know how much of it is actually based on a true story.
Mm-hmm.
Inspired by a true story would work better.
Right. I mean, what would something like that sound like?
Just like our voices, I think.
Okay. Yeah, this specific podcast, actually.
Yeah. Tell your friends about it, by the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, share the show on your social media outlets and give us a review on your favorite podcast app. You, of course, are the best source of promotion for us. So tell your true crime fans about it. And you can promote it wherever you do your social media. And that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you guys once again for joining me on this journey through the 60s and 70s and then into the now with Catch Me.
Thanks, TSA.
Thanks, TSA, for making sure we can't have this happen again.
Right.
Yeah, right?
You know?
I mean, you could let me take my full bottle of shampoo and conditioner on my checked bag or on my carry-on, but I guess you win some, you lose some. So
I just want to be able to keep my shoes on the entire time.
Get pre-check, baby.
Pre-check for.
Yeah, I don't travel enough for that yet.
Man, that's worth like $95 every 5 years to not take your shoes off. Yeah, it's nice. Especially if you don't like wear new socks all the time.
Oh, I have new socks all the time, but I hate the shoes and belt bit. Drive me nuts.
I don't know. Get tighter pants. You don't have to wear a belt.
I would still wear a belt.
It's too bad. I'm not wearing them if the pants are tight. I wear leather pants. Get them as snug as I can.
Leggings, boys.
Yes.
Leggings.
I'm going to start wearing leggings for sure.
No. You're welcome. Costco.
Nope.
All right.
Get them from Costco.
Nobody cares about this. Thanks for listening to Inspired by a True Story. And remember to be careful out there. And let's keep those con artists honest.